Hey guys,
I'm Hallee,
and I'm Jamie.
and this is Literal Nonsense.
Hey guys.
Hello, friends.
So, we're doing something a lot different.
A lot different.
A lot different. So as you guys know, we had all those issues with our microphones in the past, like the echoing with the two computers when we recorded together. Terrible. So
We're doing one mic.
We're doing one mic, number one. And number two, the reason we're even doing this is because we are in Maine right now.
Woo!
Maine. We like it here.
That was so lame. Maine.
But we do like it here.
I love it here.
Yeah, no, it's nice.
I do like it a lot.
It's very like fishing village, what I would expect.
But like cute and like indie and
everyone has a traditional style tattoos.
Tribal. Yeah.
All of them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so we realized, number one, we were doing a little girls trip from like a Thursday to a Sunday, so therefore recording was kind of problematic as far as like beforehand.
Yeah, and there's not like a separate room that we could like go and record in. Right. It's just like one giant room with like a hallway, so.
But that being said, I feel like we have a cute setup. We're like both in the same camera. We have like our little stack of books here. So if this ends up working out, maybe you guys prefer this. Like, I don't know. So this is cute. I feel like it's gonna be more of like a
conversation. Like
a
coffee chat.
It is like a coffee chat. So I like it. So we're trying this out. Yeah. And so we have actually all kinds of fun things because not only are we doing a book review this week, but also a movie review on our book.
Yes.
So that's going to be nice. Okay. So basically, did we mention last week what we were reading?
I don't know.
So we read Eat, Pray, Love.
The topic of conversation for today.
Yeah. So we read Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Liz Gilly.
Oh, I have the book. Here we are.
Here she is.
It's like we're in like a real book club now. Okay. My cat vomited on my book.
Ew. Okay.
I was really upset by it.
That's
Anyways.
okay.
It was sad. And so I knew about this book, but I did not know the format. Like, I feel like I've always heard Eat, Pray, Love.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it was a memoir. I don't think. I
knew it was like about her life, and she traveled to 3 different places.
Okay, so I was even more in the dark. So basically the synopsis of our book is this woman, Elizabeth Gilbert. She's going through a divorce. She decides that it's just not for her, marriage or like being a mom or any of that.
Yeah.
And so she wants to travel, and she's sitting there and she's like, I want to travel to 3 places.
Mm-hmm.
They're all very different. How do I pick? And then she's like, LOL, I don't have to pick. I'll just go to all 3.
Yeah.
So she decides to go to Italy, India, and Indonesia, Bali specifically.
Yeah.
Which, wow, what different vibes.
Completely different vibes.
But I also really liked the way that she organized this book.
Mm-hmm. Like the setup.
Yes.
So like that's like, okay, so like how it starts, like before you even get into the story, she goes into like the reason of how she formatted the book was like off of like the japa malas or whatever.
Yeah.
Which is like kind of like a meditation prayer tool similar to a rosary.
Mm-hmm.
So like each, like she starts in Italy, and then that's like kind of like her beginning, and then she ends up in India, and then she ends up in Bali. And I feel like it's very like a linear progression of like, so after her divorce, or like during her divorce, she was like super upset, obviously, because she was just like, yeah, I don't want to be married anymore. Which is wild.
We were saying this last night, like, I understand not being happy, right? But like, if it was roles reversed and her husband was just like, yeah, nothing was wrong, but I'm just over it, she'd be pissed. Like, she kind of pulled a wild move doing that.
Yeah, and then she was just kind of hoping that, like, he would just be okay.
Like, amicable.
Yeah.
Like, of course he's not.
Yeah, he's upset.
And, like, she even mentions in the beginning, like, oh, I was fully participating in, like, buying this house, being a wife. Mm-hmm. Like, she was all about it. So I was like, wow.
Like, complete 180.
Yeah, sorry to digress, but that was just, I wanted to interject and say that because that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, so like she's like super depressed. She like lost 20-30 pounds. She's like emaciated. And we land at our first spot in Italy. And so she says that like Italy is like what brought her back to life, essentially. And then she moved into India where she like finds God kind of thing. And then in Bali was kind of just like it was almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy because
Mm-hmm.
she was told that she would visit Bali again. And so she ends up going to Bali for that reason, but then she ends up finding love.
Right. Yeah, so it definitely does flow well. And I forget what was the rosary that Hallie mentioned. There's like 108 of these beads on this thing. And so it's like a holy number because it's divisible by 3, also divisible by 9 because like 3 times 3 is 9. And so she kind of bases her sections off of like this 108 like magic number, and like 108 divided by 3 is 36. So each of her 3 places she puts into 36 chapters in the book. And so like Italy has 36 chapters. India has 36 chapters, and so does Bali.
Yeah.
Which I thought was just like a unique way to do it, and it was almost like each chapter was like not a journal entry, but like an experience or like a an important moment in that place. I think that was like a really cool way to format the book as a whole.
For sure, yeah.
Which I liked.
Yeah, it wasn't just like chapter 1, blah 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 blah. Chapter 2, blah blah blah. Like it wasn't like that. Like it all like flowed well.
Yes. And Hallie and I talked slightly, and we disagree on the order in which she did this. Not disagree, like I think for her it worked well, but I just feel like after going to Italy and seeing the good life and being whatever, and we'll go into each section in more depth, but like then going to India and it's like very poverty stricken and like you're in this ashram and like that's all you're doing. I think it'd be really hard to go from eating all this wonderful pasta and like, you know, having friendly faces and like a kind of almost like luxurious experience for lack of a better word, and then being like
stripped down.
Yeah. Again, I think it worked for her, which we'll go into kind of each part, but like, wow, I don't know. I don't know if
I thought it was good. I
don't
know.
I agree.
Like I can understand your viewpoint, but I'm like, eh.
Right. Like
I agree with hers.
Yeah. Okay, well, so regardless of what I think or Hallie thinks, she did start in Italy, so that's what's happening. And yeah, I mean, this is like really like Hallie said, like she's low when she gets to Italy.
Yeah, she's like not well.
Yeah, she's super thin, which I guess Italy is a great place to land if you feel that way. So she just basically, and what I think is crazy, India, she had kind of a task, but Italy, right? She's like, I'm there to learn Italian.
Yeah.
And walk around and eat.
But like just for the pure fact that like she loves Italian and she thinks it's like a beautiful language. So it's not like she's learning Italian like for a purpose. It's just because she just wants to do that. And like she's talked about that like amid the divorce, like, you know, it's so nice to do something just because I want to do it. And I just have to think about like myself.
And it brings her like joy.
Yeah. Like she's like taking baths and like with her Italian dictionary, just like saying these words.
Which again, I think that's great. Like obviously if you're getting divorced, right? You want something for yourself to like bring you good spirits, whatever. And yeah, so then that really is the only reason that she's like Italy. Yeah. So she goes and she's just learning Italian and eating. And for a little bit she's in school, like Italian school. Takes like but then she like drops out and she's like, it's just easier to have conversations and learn it that way.
Well, yeah, because she felt like she wasn't really learning a lot like being in class.
Right, which I totally get, but I just think like we were talking about this last night briefly. I am all for like vacation or like, you know, the stresses of life get too much sometimes. I just don't think I would do well with like no
like direction.
Yeah, like nothing. Like she just wakes up every day and she's like, I'm gonna go eat and talk Italian. That's it? Like I don't know how I would do, like not having like a task for myself.
Well, I think also because you were very like not high strung, but like I think you gain a lot of pleasure from like completing things and like doing things. So I feel like for you, like that wouldn't fit your vibe.
So, like, do you feel like if you went to Italy and just, like, every day got up, just no agenda, like...
I don't think I could do it for, like, 3 to 4 months. I think I could definitely do it for, like, a month. But then afterwards, I'd be like, okay, like, now I'm kind of bored, so then I would want to, like, get a job at, like, a coffee shop or something.
Right. I think that's my point. Like, even when I studied abroad, like, I was there for 2 months, but, like, every day I had class at 9 and 1.
Mhm.
You know, like, or whatever. And then, like, other than that, they were like, I didn't have a job, but I still was, like, living there, so I had to, like, go grocery shopping,
Mhm.
make dinner, and, like, that was fine. Like, it was nice to not be working and, like, go out when I wanted, see whatever I wanted, on the weekends do whatever. But I think, like, having, like, the structure of, like, okay, like, go to this class for an hour was, like, at
Mhm.
least I have, like, a purpose.
But I think it also was kind of like a reset for her because, you know, she came from this life. She was she a journalist?
She's a writer.
Just
I
a
don't know.
writer, just
Yeah.
writing books. But then she says that she was working for, like, a travel journal thing, and, like, people were paying her to, like, go to these countries or whatever and write, like, this
Yeah, and I
story.
think this whole experience, like, it was with the intent, like, they paid her in advance that, like, she was gonna write either a book or whatever on her year abroad.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I
like,
mean, like, technically she was
working.
low key, but I feel like, you know, like, coming from, like, you know, she was an unhappy like, she was unhappy in her marriage, and, like, obviously she had a job, she had structure in her life, but she was, like, in such a low place. I think the idea of, like, being in this beautiful country and just eating really good food and doing nothing else but, like, what she wants to do is, like, was, like, good for her.
No, I agree. And she makes comments like you said, like, this is what brings her, like, back to life. Like,
Yeah.
she, like, gains mad weight back, which, like, she was like, all right, admittedly, like, most of it I had to gain back. There's, like, 10 extra now, but, like, that's
Mhm.
fine. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
Rock on. And so, yeah, I think, agreed. I think Italy was good for her. She meets all kinds of people. She has her, like, English, Italian
Yeah.
pal. It's
She
like,
meets her friend Sophie, who's, like, Swedish or something,
yeah,
right?
and,
Who's
like,
also just there to fuck around and learn
there's
Italian.
there's so many people in this, like, in this book, whatever place she goes to, that are not from the country she's in. They're all just on these, like,
journeys.
and I'm like, how many of you have time to do this? Like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I could, but, like, I was honestly struck by how many people were just like, fuck my life back home, here I am.
I know, too.
For months at a time.
And I wonder if it's also, like, you know, I'm thinking, like, Liz Gilbert, I don't know what her financial standing is, but, like, if she's a writer and she's living in New York City of all places, like, she's probably making pretty decent money, right? Like, she's probably balling a little bit. So, like, yeah, she could take a fucking year off and just fucking spend her money.
Imagine.
You know? Because, like, I'm sure she had savings, and I'm sure that at one point was supposed to go to, like, a nursery and, like, you know,
Right.
like, her future
Well,
and all that stuff.
She
but,
even
like,
mentions, like, she has the 2 houses
yeah.
that, like, she hasn't sold yet, but she could.
Yeah, so it's, like, it's almost, not to be, like, that person, but it's, like, only the rich can do shit like this. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, right, like, yeah. Yeah, and so, we should also mention before she even leaves, part of the reason she leaves, too, is this guy David.
Yeah.
Who's not her fucking husband. So basically, like, let's just, like, lay out a timeline. So Liz is getting divorced from, I don't even know his name. That's horrible.
I don't remember either.
I reading this book did not envision her ex-husband anyway. I don't even know his name.
He was just a presence.
He was just, like, the spark of her doing this.
Mhm.
So anyway, so she's getting divorced. In the process of getting divorced, she meets this guy David. Falls madly in love with this guy David.
Mm-hmm.
They're great. They're, like, fairy tale, storybook, romance, passion. But then, like, shit just gets bad. Like, she's too obsessive. He wants space. No good. They, like, can't be apart.
But, like, they want to be together, but, like, they don't work well together.
But, like, they both are almost like, let's just be unhappy together because we can't stay away from each other.
Yeah.
Which is a crazy fucking stance.
Yeah, that is very strange. And, like, also, too, like, when she meets him, like, he fucking introduces her to, like, his yogi or his guru.
And that's where she gets the idea for, like, India.
Well, then, yeah, so then that woman becomes her guru.
Right.
And she was like, I'm going to go to my guru's ashram in India.
Yeah, so all this kind of, like, is sparked from the divorce. Because Italy gave her joy during the divorce, so that's why she's like, Italy. She meets David, and he has a guru. And she's like, oh, her ashram's in India. Cool, India next up.
Mm-hmm.
Then she's doing a journal article, whatever, in Indonesia before the divorce, or, like, amid it. And this medicine man was like, you'll be back here for 3 months.
Yeah.
And she was like, cool, last stop. Like, so it all is very, like, a little
Intertwined.
bow.
Yeah.
Which again, like that makes sense. And she's like, I'm not gonna pick one. I'm gonna do all of them. So yeah. So I feel like Italy to me was just like good vibes, like a good Euro trip.
Yeah, Italy was definitely my favorite part of the book.
Yeah, like she
Like
just
you have these interesting people like Luca Spaghetti
yeah.
and
She's going to soccer games.
her like hot little Swedish friend Sophie,
who's like screwing her English partner's twin brother.
Yeah, and like she's just eating like hella pasta, drinking lots of wine, taking baths. Like
she also travels around Italy, so she's not stationed, but she's like, oh, Jesus, I'm like she's in the army. She's living in Rome, but then like she literally at one point was like, why am I not traveling?
mm-hmm.
So then she goes all over.
Yeah.
And we learn about that. We hear about it. She describes the food in
mm-hmm.
mouthwatering detail. Like it's wonderful.
That was definitely like her pleasure part of the trip.
Yeah, and I think even like the book was called like the 36 something of pleasure, hold on, or something like that. I think that was Italy.
Like it's like a true rooting in gluttony. And like in one of the last chapters of Italy, like she has this quote and it literally says pleasure can be an anchor of one's humanity. So like, and I think that like quote in itself like reinforces the idea of like that's what brought her back to herself, was like indulging in these pleasures to like kind of get her grounded back and like.
Well, yeah, and it's also an interesting point in that same conversation or like thought. She's talking to her Italian friends, and they're saying like Americans aren't good at like the pleasure of nothing.
Yeah, like Americans don't know how to do nothing.
Yeah, and that's honestly like what I was saying. Like I would struggle with this, and they were like, we love doing nothing. Like they were like, you Americans work so hard all week, and on the weekends you burn out, you sit in your pajamas and you do nothing all weekend, and you do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, if an Italian or if an American walks past like a sign that says like treat yourself to a Budweiser, you go buy a case, you indulge,
mm-hmm.
you like feel like shit, whatever. And they're like, if we walk past a sign that says like, oh, you deserve a break, they're like, yeah, I know, I'm taking one in 2 hours. Like I was planning on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like Americans almost don't take a break until they're pointed out they should take a break,
mm-hmm.
and then there's either guilt behind it or they just go over the top.
Well, yeah, that's like the vicious cycle, right? And like all right, don't quote me, but I think that's a thing of like even like with the alcohol like ages, right? Like in America you have to be 21 and it's like you don't drink, like it's like very bad, like there's like a big stigma
very
against
bad.
it until you're 21. And so what a lot of people do is like either they'll sneak it when they're younger, or once they turn 21 they go balls to the wall, because they have no like exposure to it. Whereas like people in like Italy or like Europe, like they've been drinking, tasting wine, like throwing a back of beer since they were like 13, 14.
Yeah, they're chilling.
Casually, and it's like a normal part of the culture. So like they don't abuse the alcohol like we do in America.
Right. And okay, this is like definitely not agreed. I remember the one day it was like our first week in Denmark, we were walking through a park and there was like 12-year-olds like getting tipsy. And I was like, who's letting these children do this? Which they probably were sneaking it. I'm sure like that wasn't like illegal, but at the same time, like they probably did that, and then like we're like back to being 12-year-olds, and probably we're never going to abuse alcohol.
Yeah.
Probably, and like, I'm sure like them being tipsy probably was like one beer or whatever. But like, yeah, like again, same thing. Like no one indulges like we do because we like tell ourselves in America we shouldn't, and then
we,
it's
like,
almost
restrict ourselves.
Yeah, like it's like, oh, don't go in the cookie jar. Someone's like, of course you want to go in the cookie jar.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think that was an interesting point that they were making to her.
There's no like moderation.
Right. Whereas them, like they have their 2-hour break during the day and they go and have lunch and they talk to friends and family and make social connections. And I think that's really...
It's not like rigid.
Right. We're forced to work until we can't. And then like...
Which is a whole nother discussion.
And then it's like when we have time off, we like almost try to like squeeze as much we can into it, and then that's bad too.
But then like even like that's the thing, right? Like the whole thing of like when you go on vacation, are you just going to vacation? Like say you're going, you're going to Greece. You went to Greece for your honeymoon. Your plan when you went to Greece was like, we're going to go here, we're going to do this, we're going to see this, we're going to do this, we're going to see this. Like you're trying to like hit all these check marks. And it's like, even though like that's supposed to be like a relaxing time and like a pleasurable time, like not saying that you won't get pleasure from like seeing like these cool ruins, but like you're constantly doing something.
Right.
You're not just sitting and being in like a foreign country.
Well, yeah, that especially, but even that's like today, like right now. we did shit all morning, and then I was like, all right, can we like go just like sit for 3 hours like in the room and like read a book, record the podcast, like
and even then too, it's
we're
like,
still doing something.
It's nice, but then it's almost like you have like that like guilt, like, oh, like we should be out seeing something else, like we really want to make sure we see everything, because who knows when we're gonna be back here, which is like that starts that like toxic cycle of like just fucking chill out,
which I think that's, and she was really able to do that, because I think that given 4 months, like I could take my time, like and I think that I had that mentality more so when I was like studying abroad, because it was like, all right, I know I'm here for whatever. So if I want to just like sleep in today or at night, we would like, let's watch Twilight, you know, and like we wouldn't do anything. Like we'd hang out and like drink some wine, but like we'd order Thai from across the street, and we watched the entire Twilight series because we were like, that sounds like a great time. So right, like we didn't have to be going out every night. I think it's hard when it's like a vacation, or like again, like you work so hard and you only have the weekend, like you feel like you're like you need to.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we don't have any balance in America.
And that's the thing, right? And then the weekends go so fast.
Right.
And then it's back to it. Right back in.
So yeah, I think that she really learned just like pleasure in the sense of food and stuff, but also just like the pleasure of like
chilling out.
Yeah, if you want to get up and just walk somewhere to eat, or you want to speak Italian,
go for it.
You want to go to a soccer game? You don't want to? I don't give a fuck. Do whatever you want, Liz. Like, whatever. So yeah, I really liked Italy. Also, she was like making a funny comment how like in Italy she swore a year of celibacy, and she's like, this is a horrible place to do it because they're so attractive. I personally don't think Italians are super attractive, but that's besides the point. Not like Italians as a whole. Like when I was in Italy, I was like, I mean, they could have both been 18, so like they just looked like little pre-puberty 18-year-olds. I don't know what was going on, but I was like definitely not like, whoa. So I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, Liz, but maybe she had a different type. I don't know.
Liz is also 30 in the book.
She's 34, yeah.
Like she's in her 30s, right? So it's like, if we're following societal norms, like she should really have her life together at that point, whether she's married or not. Like she's in a career, like she has probably a retirement fund. Like she's like trying, like she's an established adult, right?
Well, and also at that point too, right? When I was there, right? I was 20, so like the 18-year-old, I was like not like it, like they look young. She could be looking at like, you know, some 40-something-year-old like silver foxy Italian men and be like, they're really good looking. So who knows? I don't know.
But I think also too, a lot of her Italy like escapade, she's still very much reeling over her relationship with David.
Yeah, she's not over it.
Like she's, you know, she's in this beautiful country and like, yeah, she's doing like, she's eating great food and seeing great sights, but like David is constantly on the back of her mind, and then also her ex-husband is. So she constantly is talking about like this vicious cycle of like depression and loneliness that she's going through, and she almost gives them like personifications. Like in the book, she has like conversations with them.
Yeah, and like they like act things out, and
and like it always happens like before bed, for example. Like she'll be laying in bed and she's like, I really don't want to sleep with these two again, but here they are.
Right.
And I thought like her personification of like those two like states of being or emotions was like very interesting.
Yeah, and also that being said, right, while she's in Italy and like kind of like reviving herself, for lack of a better term, she's doing that for herself, but also simultaneously she's not doing much to help herself. So she even mentions that she brought the yoga mat because 2/3 of her year abroad are like, you know, kind of mindfulness type places.
Yeah.
And she was like, I rolled out my yoga mat in Italy and like it was like laughable. Like you just can't do yoga in Italy. And I was like, that's so true. Like, not that I've had that experience, but I could like see that. Like the places she picked were such distinct vibes. Like I could totally see like her like yoga in Italy don't match, which sounds maybe stupid or like very base level, but like yeah, I'm sure like if you live in Italy forever, like maybe you do, but like yeah, I could totally see that. So it's weird because while she's reviving herself, I'm sure doing yoga or mindfulness would probably be helping her, but she's like, it just doesn't match here.
Yeah, but I think she also knew because she was going to India and Bali, she was like, I'll get there eventually.
Right. And so Italy kind of comes and goes, but it's just like a lot of, not the same, like it's, the whole time I was interested in reading it and I was enjoying it thoroughly. But it's like, yeah, just sightseeing, hanging with Sophie with her new friends, eating lots of food, and she's just like, yeah, I feel great. Awesome. So, okay, great. So now she goes to fucking India. This is where, again, I'm just like, wow, like again, it worked for her, right? Like get the pleasure, revive yourself, and now go like do the work, like get together. Just like her describing the ashram and stuff, I'm like, it must be just, it would be almost like really hard. Like I couldn't be a place like that unless I was like really struggling and was like, I don't care about my surroundings or my lodging. I just want to like heal my brain. And I feel like after Italy, she probably healed her brain enough where I would be like, oh my God, I don't want to be in this like commune, basically. Like that's just how I would feel. I'd be like, holy shit. Again, I think it makes sense because to me, if she went to India then Italy, I think it would have regressed her progress. She did it right. I'm just saying it's probably now that she's like loving life again, that's probably like was like a hard like come down kind of again.
Yeah, but I don't think she was fully at like peak of like loving life either after Italy.
Right. So she was like fine with it.
Like she just got to the edge of like being okay. So like when she went to India, she was still pretty low. Right. You know, it wasn't really until like almost after Bali that she was like, I'm good now.
Right.
And who knows? I mean, we don't know what happened after Bali. So like maybe she still wasn't even 100% okay. Like maybe she was just, you know, chilling.
Right. That is a good point. You know? Yeah.
I mean, I think it was beautiful in the sense that like she went to India because she wanted to, you know, like really hone in on her meditation, prayer, like, you know, really living like within the realms of like her guru and like just like being in that type of atmosphere, I think could be also very healing within itself. All the chanting and all that stuff, like, you know, even like the simple stuff, she had to wash floors. Like you could find beauty in that.
Yeah. And that was the point of that, right?
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, honestly, like I feel like India was probably the most transformative for her. So she went to this ashram and she was going to stay for a month, right? Like,
yeah. And then she was supposed to travel
like around India. And then basically she's going through these meditations and she's really like she's really coming into herself. Her brain's calming down. She meets this guy, Richard from Texas, who's a great character. I mean, he's a real person, but he's a great, I don't know,
character in this book.
Yeah, like I don't know how else to say it. Like he was great.
He was a character.
Yeah, he was a character. And so she's like having a lovely transformative experience. She's going to meditation caves. You know, there's certain meditations and chants she's struggling with, but they're like, oh, if you're struggling, like you should keep with it because that means like something is like important happening in you. And she really makes a lot of changes. And they're like stark differences.
Well, that's the thing, right? In Italy, she had no fucking schedule whatsoever. She had no type of structure. She gets to this ashram and they're like, yeah, you're up at 4:00. We're doing this morning chant for an hour, and then you're going to go into meditation for like 3 hours. Then you have lunch, then you have like your duties,
jobs,
and then like we're meditating again. And like the cycle is just continuous.
See, like I would do well with that. Like if you give me like that in Italy, I'd be like, great, you know? I get anxious in like environments where I feel like, which again, that's probably like she was saying, like a lot of people are anxious and freaking out, and that's like healing for them, and they have to overcome that, right? Yeah. So yeah, maybe that would be like a good thing for me actually, but I think the routine is kind of nice because I think you would see progress, which is why she ended up having more progress internally in India than Italy.
Yeah.
Again, Italy, like you said, brought her back to life, but like as far as transformative progress, that was really made in India for her.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so she's doing all these things and she's like really noticing even after the first month, like, wow, this is crazy. And then so she decides she's like, fuck it, I'm staying here the whole time in this ashram. Like that's it. Which, I mean, yeah, like she had said, you know, she was gonna go travel India and find God that way. But if she's making such progress in finding God here, why would I
leave?
Right. Yeah. Which I think was a good.
And Richard
call.
from Texas also told her, he was like, don't leave yet.
Right.
He was like, stick it out and like follow it through. And I think that's a testimony as well. Like, yes, this is about her life and like, you know, her journey to self-discovery or self-love, whatever it is. There also is like a very big influence of the people that she meets.
Yeah, they play vital parts in her like story.
Exactly, like the profound impact that they leave on her and also kind of push her along in her journey. You know, like if it wasn't from Richard for Texas, she would have probably just traveled around India and not have gotten the full experience that she did when she stayed in the ashram. Yeah. Right? And then like when we get to Bali, we'll talk about it, but it's like the same thing.
Right.
Like if she didn't meet the people that she met in Bali, she wouldn't have met the love interest and yada yada yada.
Right. Yeah, I think it is interesting. Like it's almost like divine intervention that like she's meeting these people and they're playing like this like role in like what happened. Which you could argue that for any experience any of us have, right? how I met my friends, or even you, or like anyone we meet in our life. And so I think it's so interesting, and it's even really interesting is she's going through in this section like her relationship with God and how she feels about God, how God is a being, right? All the religions are correct and doesn't matter. You can kind of pick from each one, and whatever works for you. Like she had all these preconceived notions about meditation, and when she's in India, she's like, well, this works for me, this doesn't, and that's fine. And and I think that's like a really great thing that makes this book applicable to everyone, is that she's like, yeah, like, doesn't fucking matter, like, whatever works for you. Like that one section with the fucking cat.
Oh, the cat tied to the pole.
Yeah, like people get so there's okay. Hold on, I thought we should explain that before I go into my why I like that. So at one point, it's talking about a cat tied to a pole, and how like the priest had a cat. It would bother everyone, so he tied it to the pole during their prayer. After a while, it became like a religious ritual, and so everyone felt like they couldn't pray unless the cat was tied to the pole. Now the cat dies, everyone panics, and they're like, we can't pray because there's no cat, blah blah,
because it came like a religious figure.
Yeah, like a religious ritual, and like that was
part of like the myth about it,
right, I mean? When she was like, you shouldn't get hung up on religious rituals because who fucking cares? Everyone can still pray just as fine without the cat. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And so I like that too. Like, and that applies for all religions, right? And I really like all those like misguided, preconceived notions she had. And I feel like India broke a lot of those down. And she was even saying like Buddhism, which I actually knew this because I'm interested in Buddhism. She was like, the Tibetan Buddhists say that anyone can be a Buddhist. You can be a Christian Buddhist. You can be a Catholic Buddhist, a Wiccan Buddhist. Like, it's ideas. Like, you
the Buddha's in everyone.
Right, and you can adopt those ideologies into your life. So you can be, everyone can be a Buddhist. You could be a Hindu Buddhist. You can do whatever. You can be a Jewish Buddhist, whatever.
The Buddha was just a regular man.
Right, and it's ideas. It's the ideas of Buddhism, right? Yeah. And so I like that because it's like, she was saying, people are like, oh, you shouldn't just cherry pick your religion. And she's like, why? Pick what you want. Like, do what works for you. Like, blah, blah, blah. And I liked that. And I think India, again, showed her that because she met people from all walks of life, all countries, all religions at this ashram. And she's like, oh, it doesn't mean that we have to all be this one religion, but we're all benefiting and, being closer to God in whatever religion or way we want, but like in this place. I think that was really, again, it makes the book relate to a lot of people because that applies to everyone.
Yeah, like she even says, like, oh, if someone tells you, like, religion should be followed this way, or, like, to find God, you have to do this, you just smile, you say yes, and then you go home and you practice however the fuck you want.
Right, which
sounds pretty nice to me.
Yeah. And so India was really good for her, I think. We also, so I want to mention this part as well. When she was in Italy, there was talk of, like, people's words. Like, each town is a word. Each person has a word. If you feel like, your city that you're in is, like, you shouldn't live there, or, like, it's not vibing with you, you probably don't have, like, the same word as the city you're in. You got to find, like, kind of your location that matches your word. And so, like, Sweden, Sophie said, was, like, conform. New York was, like, ambition. Rome was sex. So, like, they were saying everyone in that location, like, that's their main focus. And they're like, well, what's your word, Liz? And she was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
What was her word? So she finds it in India. She's, like, reading a book. She's like, this is my word.
She thought that was her word, but it's not. Her word is the Italian word. Let's cross over.
Well, yeah, okay, but I guess so at the India part, she finds her.
Well, she's saying that, like, the word that she finds in India, which is Antivasan or whatever it is.
You think Antivasan?
That's, like, where she's at.
Right.
Like, in her life.
Right, and that means on the border.
Yeah. So she's kind of got, like, 1 foot here, 1 foot there kind of thing.
But at the point of India, she's like, this is my word. Like.
Yeah, that's what she thought.
Yes.
That's not what she picks, though. But,
well, I had to, we had to chronologically.
Okay, sorry, yeah. Spoiler! But I thought that was, like, an interesting. Have you ever played that game where it's, like, what color describes the state?
Yes.
I felt like reading that was very, like, reminiscent of that.
Reading it, I tried to figure out my word as well.
I definitely don't have a word.
Yeah, I feel like it's just too daunting of a task.
Yeah, no. Like, I can't think of one word that encompasses me. And I also don't think that I need to have one word that encompasses me.
Oh, okay, girl, pop off.
Just saying.
Yeah, I feel that.
I feel like I can be multidimensional, you know?
I like that for you. Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
agree. Yeah. I feel like it would have to be a really strong word, you know, to encompass all, like that word, like antivasen, for the sake of that point of the book. Like, it means, like, on the border. Like, it's, like, a beautiful, like, very, like, hearty, big meaninged word. Like, it means a lot. Like, it's like,
hearty word.
yeah, like, yeah. So I feel like it would have to be that to encompass, like, you, as, like, any of us, you know? Another part of India, before we move on to Bali, that I thought was really interesting for me, which I don't know if you'll even, like, remember this, because it probably meant, like, not that much to you, but I laughed. She was like, I'm the just chitter chatter in India. I talk to everyone and wherever. And she was like, I want to be someone who's just quiet. Like, I want to be like, ooh, that quiet, mysterious girl, whatever.
Yeah.
And she's writing that, right? And she's like, I need to, like, talk less, listen more. And I'm like, oh my God, she's so right. And I'm like really resonating with this, right? And I'm like having a moment reading this.
She takes the vow of silence.
And I was like, oh my God, like, this, I need this for my growth as well. Literally a page later, they're like, hey, we have a new job for you. Like, there's going to be a retreat here, and you're, like, the, like, liaison.
You're like the welcome lady.
Yeah, like, you're the welcome person, and we call this job, like, Susie whatever, because it's, like, we need someone talkative and happy. And then, like, she was like, you know what? Like, I want to be, like, quiet and mysterious because I'm not. And I definitely could benefit from, like, talking less and listening more, but, like, I'm who I am. Yeah. Like, I'm never going to be that. And I was like, damn. Like, because it was so funny for me because I was reading her, like, realization. And I was like, oh, yeah. Like, I want this too. And then she was like, LLJK. And I was like, fuck. Like, it was just, like, a weird moment for me where I was like, yeah, like, sometimes you are just who you are, but you can improve. And, like, you know, make yourself a better listener, friend, partner, whatever.
You can, like, recognize your shortcomings.
But inherently, like, you're gonna be
who you are. For those of you who don't know, Jamie never shuts up.
I think they've gathered that because they listen to us.
Jamie's a talker.
But yeah. Well, yes, I am. But yeah, I thought that was so funny because I was like, oh, I'm gonna be a quiet girl now. And I was like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
So I thought I was like, wow, that was like a weird moment for me. I was like, really felt like I was seeing like in a mirror. I was like, all right, Liz, never mind.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, she makes it very relatable. Like, in how she writes, it's like you feel like you're just like talking to like a friend.
Yes.
Like I appreciated that, like, her as a writer.
Yeah, like, she's sarcastic, she's real, and I did like that.
She makes some jokes.
Yeah, and I do like it.
Little punny.
Yeah. All right, and so then India ends. She has, like, this wonderful, again, she's meditating, she's made so much progress, she really feels like, she's had, like, these, like, crazy transformative meditations, that just really, like, have, like, made her feel, like, close to God and, like, this, like, pure bliss. But then obviously she has to leave, so she's going to Bali.
Yeah, so she goes to Bali, like we mentioned before. So a few years before this, she was doing a piece in Bali, and she had went to go see this medicine man called Ketut, and he, like, reads her palm, and he's like, oh, you're gonna have one marriage, one short one. He's like, you're gonna have two marriages, one short, one long. You might have a daughter. He's like, and you're gonna be back to Bali in the future, and you're gonna stay for like 3 to 4 months, and you're gonna teach me English, and I'm gonna teach you everything you need to know about, like, meditation.
I'm like, I'm sold.
And she's like, okay. So the problem is like, when she gets to Bali, you can only get a visa there for 1 month. But then she talks about, like, how things are kind of corrupt, so she slides, like, the officer, like, a $20 bill, and she has her visa for like 3 to 4 months. So what she does is she goes to see this man Ketut, and he immediately starts reading her palm, and she's like, do you not remember me? Like, from New York? And he's like, no, sorry, never met you before. And, like, I was reading that, and I was thinking of, like, that quote that's like, never meet your heroes.
Right.
Because you're going to be disappointed.
That must have, and, like, she said, like, this is, like, the one time, not one time, but she's like, this is the most unplanned I've ever been in, like, travel. Like, she's like, I didn't realize until that moment, I was just banking on this man remembering me.
Yeah, and that he was going to house her.
Yeah.
And, like, she'll live there. Well, eventually he does remember, and he's like, oh my God, Liz. And
he's like, you came back.
Yeah, so he does as he says. Yeah. She teaches him English, and he teaches her about meditation. But like, she doesn't, like, really go, but, like, she also, like, doesn't go into, like, that aspect of it.
No.
like I felt like going into Bali, I had like one idea of like what was like kind of gonna happen, and then it totally like 160'd, and it was like just about her love story.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, like she briefly talks about meditation, like briefly, but then she even says too, like she also expected one thing from Bali too, right? And like the sense of she thought she was gonna teach him English, and then she said, I'm not really teaching him any English. Like I'm
Yeah, and
confused.
like his English was better than she
Right.
last saw
And
him.
so it was really cute because at one point it's maybe like kind of like, aw. She was like, oh, I didn't realize like my job until like he saw all these people one day. And then like afterwards, she's like, okay, I'm gonna go. You had like a busy day. He's like, no, like please sit and talk to me about like Italy and this and that.
Yeah,
And she was like, oh, he just wants like company. And I was like, damn, like
yeah,
fucking rip my heart out, bro.
I
Like this cute
know.
ass little toothless medicine man.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I thought it was also interesting too, like because like he's teaching her how to meditate, and he's like, you have to smile like from your mouth, but then you also have to like have your heart smile, and like even your liver needs to be smiling, and it's like that's like all the input he he gives her, but like he like encourages her to like continue her meditation like that she learned like in India, and like but then also to meditate like how he's telling her to.
yeah, I agree. It definitely wasn't like a meditation heavy section though.
No, it was very love centric.
Which is so crazy going from Italy when she was like, no.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. Okay, I don't know. So, this is where I kind of like towards the end, I was kind of like, okay, like whatever. Like, I really enjoyed Italy. India was good. And then Bali, I was kind of like, not that it disappointed me, but like, I don't know. Maybe I was just like expecting more or something different. But essentially, she gets like a UTI or something. And so she goes to like this local, like holistic doctor. And she meets this woman there, this Brazilian woman. She's like, she's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Like, she looks so pretty. Like, she's like taking care of her appearance. Like, even though she's like in the jungle, like, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And her name's like Armenia, I think. And she was like, oh, like, Liz, like, why don't you come like down to the beach tonight? Like, we're having a party. So Liz is like, all right, like, I'll go. So she ends up going, and she starts talking to this one guy. His name is Felipe, and he's like the cook. Like he's cooking all the food for everyone, and there's like a whole bunch of people there. And she starts like eyeing up the drummer, and he's like this like Danish or Swedish guy or something like that. And
Scandinavian.
yeah, and she's like really feeling him. And they're like dancing and stuff, and I don't know. She ends up talking to Felipe, and he was like, oh, like he's like such a flirt or something like that. Like yada 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 XYZ. She doesn't end up with the drummer. She ends up with Felipe, who is, by the way, like in his 50s, I guess silver foxy, like Brazilian man.
Which we're going to talk about.
Okay, reading that, I thought he was like a silver fox, like really suave, like Brazilian
Correct.
man. That's what I was getting. Well, is that mean to say? Okay, so before
Personal preference, not our type.
in real life,
Yeah.
like the real Felipe, no.
Which maybe we're young and.
But then, like, also too, like, I was not like I thought Liz Gilbert looked like Julia Roberts.
Which
She
she
doesn't.
mentions in the book. She's like, I am no Julia Roberts. So we should have taken
I
that.
should have known that.
Right. Well, okay, and I digress. David in the movie is James Franco, so I was like, I too
David.
would let this man be miserable just to keep him.
Yeah.
Fine. We'll talk about the movie after we finish our book thoughts. We will give a movie review. So back to Felipe.
Yeah. So basically, her and Felipe have like this
whirlwind romance, for lack of
kind
better.
of. She's very much like, okay, so they start hanging out, like they start doing everything together, and they form like a very strong friendship first. And I think from what I remember, he like slyly mentions like, hey, like if you're trying to get freaky, like here I am. And she's like, no, I took a vow of celibacy, like I don't want to. I've made so much progress within myself, like I don't want a distraction, yada yada yada. And
which
then
again, imagining the real life people saying this is wild to me.
Yeah, so then I think she goes somewhere or something, and she comes back and she ends up at Felipe's house, and they have sex, and then after that, like they're inseparable, like they're very much together.
Yeah, and again, not that doesn't discredit this journey for me, but I'm just like, okay.
Yeah. And then you also have the plot of, so the holistic medicine woman, I can't remember her name, but she has a daughter. Her name is Tootie. And like Tootie's like carrying around this like little blue square. And Tootie's like, one day when we have a house, like the whole floor is going to be blue tile. So for her birthday, Liz emails like all her friends and family and is like, hey, like, can you donate money to this Indonesian family who doesn't have a house and like they're going to have to move? And Tootie's mom also like adopted two rando kids because they were homeless. So now there's 3 kids. There's the mom and like
Right. She's like, not only are we homeless, you are
Yeah.
homeless, so let's all be homeless together.
she's getting evicted from her spot. So Liz is able to really raise like $22,000 or something, which apparently in Bali is like a lot of money. It's like
Well,
I guess whatever. So then there's like the whole plot of like the mom is like, oh, like I'm looking for a house but I can't find anything, and it's like going on and on and on, and Liz is getting suspicious. She's like, you have all this money, like why can't you just pick this plot and build your house? And she was like, oh, I have to see a medicine man, it has to be like pass the shaman test, like it has to do all this stuff. And Liz is like she's like, what are you doing? So she asks Felipe and she's like, oh, she's like, do you think she's like, you know, like jerking me around here? And he's like, yes. So Liz makes up this whole thing of like, oh, like people are asking, like, how's your house? Like they think you're a con woman. And she's like, oh my God, like, no, like, please, Liz, like, don't tell them that. Like, I'm really looking for a house. 2 hours later, she buys a house and is like settled.
well, that's what Liz
So
was
like
saying.
that was like another plot line, which I don't know if it was very relevant.
Right. And the thing, well, she mentioned too, like Bali as a tourist, right? You go and everyone's really friendly because it's like a lot of their revenue is from tourism.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. They all speak English. They're very helpful. And so that's kind of like the on the surface. Like below, they're, you know, everyone like is like, no crime. The policemen wear flowers behind their ears.
Yeah.
But like, you know, behind closed doors, like it is corrupt and like people are conning you and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I get it. Like, I guess that's relevant, but like, yeah, like how relevant is it?
But see, now this is my thing, right? And it's like, okay, like I'm all for philanthropy. Like, you know, you're raising money for somebody, you know, supporting a cause, great, love that. But like, to me, it almost came off as like disingenuous and like I did such a good thing for like this random fucking family, and like look at what I did,
Right?
You know, like it's almost like a boasting kind of thing.
Yeah. I feel like Bali, like Italy was like it kind of all tied together in the sense of like pleasure and like finding yourself, whatever. India, I felt like, you know, again, like super transformative for her. I feel like Bali was more of the sense of just like I'm kind of dicking around and doing random things, but falling in love is the main point. And it's like, did you not do what you set out to do because you fell in love? Or like did you really just have like no drive in Bali?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, like the whole thing too, like it. So like in the book, so I think the purpose, like overall, is to be like if you can sit and like work on yourself and make yourself a better person, and like your impact on other people will be positive, and that will then make everybody else positive as well. Like that whole very much like esoteric, like raise the vibration of the planet kind of thing. Because after she donates all this money to Tootie's family, we find out that Tootie means everybody. So she's like, oh, when you help Tootie, you are really helping everybody. You know what I mean? So like that was kind of like the spin.
Yeah.
Which like, okay, valid, but then like also like, I don't know.
One, like, you know, each book, so like Italy was the pursuit of pleasure. India was the pursuit, I'm looking for it. India was the pursuit of devotion, and Bali was the pursuit of balance. So, yeah, maybe like you said, like she's having that balance also in her love life, right? I don't need to be like a social and emotional and romantic hermit to be a good person. Like I could be a good person, work on myself, but also open myself up again to a relationship. Like I don't need to swear off of worldly pleasures.
Yes. And she has that conversation with I think either Tootie's mom or Katut, and they're like, sometimes losing your balance is a part of living a balanced life.
Right. Like you don't need to be so rigid.
Yeah. I think also too, which was really interesting, which was like a very small snippet in this section, was like she's meeting with Katut, and Katut is telling her like the difference between heaven and hell is really not like a thing. Like we're conditioned to think of like heaven as like this beautiful paradise, like once you die, like you're gonna live in ecstasy.
Right.
If you were a bad person, like you're going to hell, like you're fucking roasting every day for the rest of your existence, right? But he's saying that heaven and hell are the same place. It's the path that you decide to take. So like you could either make your path to this afterlife this path to the afterlife a good one, which would be like reminiscent of like heaven, or it could be a path to a bad path, and then that's hell, but they're really the same thing. So it's really like how you go through life, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, I don't think Bali was like a fucking wash, you know what I'm saying? I just think like other sections were more impactful for me.
Yeah, same.
And so overall, I think this book, like the format was awesome. I love how she did that.
So what would you rate it?
I'm giving it a 4 stars.
Yeah, I also gave it a 4 stars.
I think written well, very unique, very relatable. Again, I think I'm being more rigid with my rating lately, unless it's like blowing me out of the water, literally.
Yeah.
Like with like the literal language, with like the skills used, and emotionally. Like, or even like the 5 agreements or the 4 agreements. I gave that a 5 star because I was like, ooh, I feel like that really helped my life. It was easy to read and he wrote it well, you know? This was probably like, for me, even like a 4.5. Like, I really enjoyed it, right?
I would say it's a solid 4.
Okay, so here's my thing next. I feel like it's a 4.5. But after the movie and doing some research, I felt differently about this book, and now it's like a solid 4. So let's go into that. So we decided on our little main girls trip that we would, since we read this book, like we're like, oh, let's watch the movie together.
Neither of us had seen it, so we were like, awesome.
So we watched the movie last night. I mean, obviously movies always take like artistic liberties. Yeah. They stuck to the story relatively. Like they changed like small things, and what bothers me, it's like the small things they changed, like it would have been the same effort to just have left it how it was written.
Way, yeah.
Like, didn't add anything to the movie even.
I don't think so.
It was stupid things. Like,
yeah, like she's in Italy and her one friend is like, I really want to have, like his birthday's on Thanksgiving. He's like, I really want to have like a Thanksgiving turkey like as my birthday dinner. And it's like 8:00 at night. He's like, okay, let's make turkey. And Liz is like, bro, that takes like 6 hours to cook. Like, we're going to wake up in the morning and it'll be ready. So she's like, let's just order pizza. And that's it. Like in the book, they had pizza. But in the movie, they fucking put the turkey in and it's like 8 a.m. and they're having the turkey the day after Thanksgiving.
Right. Or even like when she meets...
Like, you could have just put the turkey in at that point.
Right. Or even when she meets Richard from Texas.
Yeah.
Like, he, in the book, is a recovering drug and alcohol addict. Like, he's like...
Yeah, he's recovering... had like every job in the book, including like all these crazy
And she
things.
said like, oh, I asked him if I could use his real name and talk about his addiction. And he said yes. In the movie, there's this whole scene about how he almost ran his kid over with a car.
Yeah.
That never happened.
That never happened.
Now, did that happen in real life? She didn't put it in the book, but she helped write the movie? I don't really know.
She wasn't on the credits, though.
Good point.
She didn't produce the movie.
Yeah, so there's just things like
that. It was Brad Pitt.
Right, whatever.
Random.
So there's just like random things like that where I was like, I don't really know what's going on here. So that kind of the movie, whatever. Now, should it be controversial to mention? Like, there's no risk of her ever hearing this, right? Like, let's be realistic. You know what I'm saying?
What do you mean?
Like, you know.
All right, so basically I was halfway through Indonesia and I'm like, who? Like, I need faces at this point. So I'm searching up Liz Gilbert and it's like showing who she's married to and his real name is Jose. So I click on it and I'm like, this
is the Brazilian lover?
That's, yeah, crazy. He looked like my grandpa. Not going.
Yeah, like a grandpa ass.
Like, not sexual in the least bit.
Grandpas can get down, I guess, you know, but not the vibe I was getting from the book at all.
Definitely not.
And again, that's fine that she's no Julia Roberts, you know, not many of us are. So that, you know, understandable. Oh my god. Sorry, something just scared me. And so, okay, we can't judge based on look. I mean, I will say the grandpa vibes for the Brazilian lover was shocking.
Yes.
Okay, now here's my issue. So as we're
like 10 minutes out, like the movie's almost done.
And now I'm deep diving these people. So now we find out. Now, again, so she gets divorced.
She had her fling with David.
And now she, you think when Eat, Pray, Love ends, this is her new husband. She ends up marrying Felipe/Jose.
This is her soulmate.
And you're like, amazing, this transformative journey. She's healed, whatever. Now you come to read more about this woman, and she divorces Felipe Jose.
After 9 years.
For a woman.
Yes.
Which, that's fine. But, like, what a change up.
Uh-huh.
And now this woman dies of cancer.
Wild.
And then she's now dating her friend/roommate. Like, the cancer friend, girlfriend, had a roommate. And so now after this woman dies of cancer, now Liz is now dating her ex-roommate.
Yeah.
So, okay. I feel this lost some credibility for me, as I felt this book was relatable. I felt this book was humble.
Mm-hmm.
It had humility.
Yeah.
And I thought it was like her journey for,
I really hope you were going to say what I want you to say.
I feel like she's just a messy bitch.
Yes.
So I feel like that made the book lose credibility for me because
she talks about that too in the beginning of how like she was always one to jump from one to the next to the next.
And I'm not going to do that anymore. And this journey helps me. So I feel as though, my girl, this journey did not help you. And I think it's a great story. But like, again, I wish that like that man was like your lifelong partner, yada, yada. And this like, again, almost like this year-long abroad journey really worked. You're proving that it didn't do anything.
Yeah, because you're doing the same shit.
Yeah, and is that controversial? Does it matter in the scope of the book? I'm not really sure, but I feel a certain way about it.
Yeah.
Because again, I feel like both of us, when we read a book, right, I don't just read a book. I want to know, especially if it's a memoir, like, where are you now? What's going on? What are you doing? So then in doing all that, I was like, wow, like, you're just all over the place. And this clearly, again, I'm sure she still practices yoga and does all of her mindfulness and all this stuff. And maybe, there's something to be said about that as well, in the sense of what's good for you 5 years ago maybe isn't good for your path now. You can always evolve and change.
I mean, like, also granted, we don't know the circumstances of, like, their actual relationship. Like, we don't know, like, how sometimes just bizarre things happen, but, like, that almost left, like, a sour taste in my mouth where it's, like, she hopped from her ex to David to Felipe, and then it was, like, Felipe, this other person, and now this other person.
Right.
And I'm like, all right.
And mind you, so what in my deep dive, it was 2019. It was like she's now dating her ex-girlfriend's roommate, right? And she put a post on Instagram and it said like, I'm now with him. This is my partner. If you see me with a handsome man, here he is. This is who it is. Also, he was, best friends with, I forget the woman's name, which I am sorry. He was best friends with, say, Sophia. I don't know, whatever. Best friends with her, so it also comforts us both to mourn together but be romantically involved, yada, yada, yada. Okay, fine. So now I'm stalking Instagram. I'm scrolling. So that post is now erased because like the article is published, say, April 20th, and they're like, oh, she posted this past week. So I go on, March and April, that post is gone. So now clearly she's also not with that man.
Yeah.
So it's like, I am fully supportive of changing, evolving, whatever, but I also really even like normal, mundane people like us, like grandparents who have been together their whole lives. I think it's like a test to character of like staying with that person, working through things, even like a friendship that lasts 50 years. I don't care if it's romantic, but just like working through the hard shit and not being like this like flitting, fickle person. And I feel like just based off the research we did about her, she's coming off fickle and like just like a mess.
Yeah.
And so that holds a lot less credibility for me as far as the book goes, because this was a book of like fixing her mess.
And did you learn anything?
Right. Like comes off cross like no.
I mean, like, she might have learned things along the way, but like the major point of it all, like, I don't think.
Right. Like I felt like reading it, I was like, this is profound. And like really she was like really like bettering herself as a person.
Yeah.
And I feel like if all the things that she wrote and the messages I took from this book were true, all those things we found out about you now wouldn't have happened.
So I feel like that circles back to like the don't meet your heroes kind of thing, because you're going to be disappointed.
Yes. And so again, we say this with the intent that we will never have her hear this.
You know what, Liz? Even if you are listening, like, whatever, you put yourself in the social media spotlight, like, people are going to have their opinion. We're putting ourselves out there. People listening are going to have their opinions.
And honestly, like, no hate. Like, I have lots of messy friends.
Yeah. we're also not like fucking
I'm just saying,
holier than thou. Like, this is just our opinion. And
yeah.
if you don't like it, then fuck off.
I
Sorry.
just feel like, we're allowed to be messes. I'm not writing a book telling you about my transformative journey, so therefore I can be however messy I want to be. You have written a book.
I'm jocking on him.
You have written a book about this, like, life fucking journey you went on.
Yeah.
And then it comes across...
like you're a sellout.
Right.
We wish you the best. But whatever.
Yeah. And so that's our opinions. I liked recording with you in person.
Yeah, we haven't done this in so long.
And I almost like us being in the same screen and like having like a little book chat. We also we'll show you guys the video.
These are our books.
We have a little stack of books. I would almost like a little like studio vibe, it's nice. So, if you guys like this, we can do this.
Give us your input.
Sure. And so, books we are reading soon. Some of them are just for funsies. But on this stack of books on our table, in case you are not watching but just listening, we have Powerless. My coworker Christine bought it for me, and she sent it to my house. And she was like, "You will read this." And I said, "Yes, I will." I'm excited about it. I'm making Hallee also buy it. So you heard it here.
I've been wanting to buy it. I just haven't bit the bullet yet.
So I'm having her bite the bullet because of Christine. So thank you, Christine.
Thanks, girl. Appreciate you.
She's, yeah. Hallee, whatever. But
I don't need another book right now.
The voice crack did it for me. Then I also recently got Happy Place by Emily Henry. I've read 3 of her books. This now is finally in paperback, which is all my other ones. And also, ironically, it takes place in Maine. So I was like, well, I have to buy it in Maine.
Pop off.
Okay. Now, our next book that we were covering next week is on my stack. It Happened One Summer. Now, even though it takes place in Washington, it's very similar, like, fishing port, coastal town. He's a fisherman. Honestly, if I remember correctly, so since it's a romance, as you've gathered our pattern, I have read it, Hallee has not yet. But it's a good summer vibe. If I remember correctly, the sex scenes are immaculate.
Mm-hmm.
So, can't wait. And then Hallee bought a book. What's this book?
Scarred.
By
Emily McIntyre. It's a dark romance. My friend Shallon recommended it to me. It's giving enemies to lovers.
She asked me like The Lion King, so it seems like something like with that.
So like this series by like Emily McIntyre, like she takes like Disney stories, but she like twists them. So like this one is based off of The Lion King, but it's not like lions, like it's a little twist. It's inspired by the story.
So yeah, and then you brought other books with you, yes?
Yeah, I'm finishing Cassandra Clare right now, and that's it.
Okay.
Also reading Dune.
So never ending. But basically, next week, just to give you guys a heads up, we are doing another summer fun book. We've decided we want to just do fun books that are popular and that,
quick, easy reads.
Yeah, we want to talk about and you guys want to hear. So It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey is next. And so we will be doing that.
You're like showing the book to the camera, but like this isn't.
Why can't I post this?
This is a podcast.
Podcasts also have video.
Are you gonna upload the whole video?
I don't know. Maybe I will.
All right, rock out.
Maybe it's a new vibe. We could be expanding. I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, so we're doing...
Jamie's like, welcome back to my channel. This is my book.
That could be cute. So anyways, yeah, so we're doing this book next week.
We don't have the infrastructure for this.
I know. Yeah, we don't happen to have this cute little table at home. We just happen to be on vacation right now. So yeah, anyways, we're reading that book next week. We'll let you know what we think about it. I have high hopes. After you liked The Unhoneymooners, I was
shocked. I'm like, oh my god, am I gonna be a romance girly? No, I don't think so.
Well, either way.
Maybe.
And so we're going to go proceed on our vacation. We are having lobster rolls on top of lobster rolls. I think our grand total is going to be
9?
No. Well, do we count each 3 of those?
Yeah.
So 8.
Okay.
So we'll have 8 lobster rolls in 4 days.
We'll have 8 lobster rolls.
We will have 8 lobster rolls, and we're having a contest.
We're rating them all. Mm-hmm. Not like contest like who can eat the most, but like
no.
Contest in like which one's the best.
Yeah. Tonight we're having a brown butter lobster roll, and that
mouthwater.
one's gonna be so stupidly good. I have high hopes for this one.
High hopes, yes.
And they're going troll hunting tomorrow.
It's a quest.
It's a
We've been quested to find trolls.
I have a troll thing. I'll talk about that.
I have a troll.
Maybe one day I'll discuss that with you guys.
Oh my god, that sounds so silly.
I mean, it is silly.
Jamie's into trolls.
So yeah, I am into trolls. And just, you know, for a quick update, I'm not telling you the whole troll thing because we'll be here for a long time. But
She's such a geek.
I will. I've seen 15 trolls so far. So this will be 20 tomorrow.
I'll have seen 5.
Yeah, so
not shabby.
Can't wait. So I'm seeing trolls 16 through 20 tomorrow. So keep you updated. So yeah, we really enjoyed this week as far as recording together, and I also really enjoyed doing a book and movie review.
Yeah, that was fun.
So
I wonder if we should do like going forward more like books and movie adaptations.
I'm into that, and
not
also,
like for like every week, but like as like a little fun little. Oh, by the way.
Yeah, so let us know if you guys liked A, this little change of book and movie adaptation, and let us know if B, this like video, like the two of us just like having a coffee chat is more the vibe. I feel like it feels more cozy to me.
Yeah, more wholesome.
Maybe I'll upload the whole video. If you're watching us, then you know I did. Yeah. All right. Well, we love you guys.
Thanks for listening. Liz Gilbert, no hate, but get it together. Wish you the best.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Ciao.
Bye. Bye.
Oh, we never said what her word was.
What was her word?
Liz Gilbert's word was atravisiamo or something like that. It means
crossover.
Let's cross over.
That's
okay, bye.
Bye.